Good evening. Welcome to In Conversation With. This is episode 3 of series 5. And tonight I'm speaking with someone that many people here in my community recommended that I talk to when I asked for podcast people, content creators, and this woman was top of the recommendation list, definitely. She's a podcasting genius and an avid jumpsuit lover as well. So I am dying to see what she is wearing, and there she is. That sounds really weird, doesn't it? But she's known for her catsuits almost as much as her podcasting production skills. So hopefully Annabelle Buckland, aka Producer Buckers, is going to be joining us very soon. So, like I say, she's sometimes known as Producer Buckers. She lives in Oxfordshire with her gran and a neurotic cat. Her words, not mine. She graduated from the University of East London with a first class degree in media and creative industries. And she started her career in commercial radio back in 2015. I can see that Annabelle has requested to join, and I am hoping the connection is taking so long, but I'm really hoping she's able to join us. She's presented on both local and national stations, and she sometimes reads the news on BBC Radio Oxford, which I think is actually very cool. And she's won tons of awards for her, oh, bear with me a second. There we go. I'm going to see if I can send a request to her maybe. She's won tons of awards for her producing work, and during her radio, here she is.
I'm so sorry about that. Technical difficulties.
Oh, don't worry, it's fine. Check you out in your
I dusted off the jumpsuit, didn't I?
I feel like a bit of a shoulder shimmy. I don't know, but your outfit makes me want to do that. This is how glamorous do you look? Like ridiculous.
This is Rubbi. I only get properly dressed about one day a week. So you're the lucky one this week.
It's all downhill from now on. No calls for the rest of the week. Thank you very much.
Yeah, exactly. It's the first time I put a bra on in about 6 weeks.
First one. Well, actually, I'm not wearing one. But there you go. Maybe 2.
Woohoo! Let them fly free.
So I was just introducing you to my lovely.
It was lovely.
So I got up to the bit where I was going to say, during your radio career, you've dressed up as a turkey for charity. Yeah. Not just maybe for fun as well. You did a 24-hour broadcast in an ice cream van, and you ended up getting a tattoo live on air. What was it going to be?
It was going. Do you know what? It was going to be a bell, because on the breakfast show that I worked on, anytime we got a new listener that messaged in, I had a little bell to ring. But because my name's Annabelle, none of the listeners knew me as Annabelle. All the listeners knew me as Producer Buckers, but I thought it will have a bit of a personal meaning and it'll be related to the show. We did this brilliant campaign where we tried to get every single listener to refer a friend to the show to grow our listeners. We were always trying to come up with fun ways of getting more people listening to the show, and we pitted myself and our other presenter against each other. And we were about to go and get our tattoos, and then lockdown was announced. We actually had an appointment the day after lockdown was announced. And then I was made redundant, so I'm bloody glad I didn't have a tattoo from that radio station, aren't I?
Imagine that is one lucky escape, isn't it?
Imagine.
I like that. Do I like the idea of having a tattoo for every place you've worked at? No, don't do that, kid.
No.
Not cool. But now Annabelle, she's put that in her past. However, she now puts her content planning and presenting experience to really good use, guiding your clients through the process of launching a podcast, which really is authentic and speaks from the heart. You are loud. You are proud. These are your words. You're loud, you're proud. And you don't prescribe to podcasting rules. So you're my kind of gal. I don't prescribe to social media rules, you know? Yes. Social, not the other way around. So we have got just under 20 minutes, and I've got a ton of questions to ask you.
You're a brave girl.
For you who's joining us live, and thank you so much if you are. I know loads of people catch up afterwards. But if you are live with us now and you've got a question about podcasting for producer Buckers, and please drop them. Actually, there is a button with a question mark in the bottom right-hand corner of your screens. Use that, type out a question, and I'll be able to put it on screen for everyone to see, and then Annabelle can hopefully answer that. So, formally welcome, Annabelle.
Thank you. Now, thank you for having me here.
Oh, first question. According to Ofcom, which is the Communications Service Regulator, it says that 1 in 8 people listen to podcasts every week, with the average person listening to around about 7. Entertainment's the most popular category. Then it's then discussion and talk shows. Now, those are stats from 2019, and I really do wonder if they were to do some research right now, today, would those stats be even stronger still? Because I feel as though during lockdown, my own personal consumption of podcasts went up, and people that I was following, and I do follow in my community, I saw them posting a lot about podcasts. So tell me, why are they so popular? Because they've been around for quite a while now.
They have, and they're really having a moment. And I think you're right in what you're saying. Lockdown has had a massive impact on our podcast listening. And I think that's for a number of reasons. I think that our social media sphere is so saturated that we're looking for new ways to consume media that doesn't involve staring at a screen. I know I am. So I think that the fact that we can still consume content but not have to be visually engaging, it gives our eyes a rest, and it also gives us the freedom to go and do something else while we're listening. I think that I know a lot of people find it very therapeutic if they're, just doing the housework or, sorting out some old paperwork or something, pop a podcast in, and it just makes time go faster. And it gives you that freedom to be able to listen on the go when you're going out for your walks. We've all been on our daily walks, haven't we? And I think that, lockdown has just given people more time and more motivation, really, to consume content in a different way. So I think we probably will find, I'm sure there is research being done into podcast listening now.
Yeah.
I think we're going to find lockdown has had a considerable impact on our podcast listening. And also, I think the radio industry in the UK especially is really changing. So I think that a lot of our smaller commercial stations are being bought out by the larger media companies, which means that a lot of shows are now being syndicated from from London or Manchester, and we're losing that kind of localized aspect to our commercial radio shows.
Yeah.
And with that, I think comes in kind of less creative autonomy for presenters and producers than we're used to as listeners.
Yeah.
So whereas maybe 10 or 15 years ago, radio had a kind of real loosey-goosey feeling to it, that feeling that kind of anything can happen.
Yeah.
I think, sadly, we are losing that slightly. And podcasting is kind of swooped in and kind of filled that gap, because we can have real authenticity and that real sort of candid feeling to podcasts that perhaps we were able to get with radio in the past, but we're kind of losing. So I think that's another reason that podcasting has become so popular, I think.
A really good observation, and pick up on 2 points. A, that's a great observation, but secondly, the consumption of it. And you are right, we are looking for different ways to consume and be entertained, be educated. And I've been a guest on a number of podcasts, and I love a good podcast to listen to when I'm cooking or cleaning or walking.
Yeah.
Back in the day when I could drive somewhere. I listen to things like, Brené Brown, Oprah Winfrey, Super Soul Sunday, How to Fail with Elizabeth Day.
Oh, love.
Favourites. And I know loads of people in my community love that one as well. But I have the feeling, they make it look make it sound so easy. So easy.
Yeah.
And it's more than just talking, isn't it? So what makes a really good podcast?
I think a number of things. What you just said about how they make it look easy. Something that I find myself saying a lot is that a great podcast host makes a conversation feel like a conversation and not an interview.
Yeah.
I love it when when you almost forget who's the host and who's the guest, and those boundaries become blurred, and you have a host that can ask a great question and then the guest answers it and then throws it back to the host, and then it goes off on a tangent. And I just think that that's a huge skill to be able to do that, and something that comes with time. But I think that that's a really great, I think most great podcasts have that element to them. And also, podcasting is such a great way of creating community with an audience. And I'm sure that you talk about this with your clients and in your communities as well, that creating community, creating a sense of belonging with your audience is vital. And podcasting is a really great way to do that. And I think that the great podcasts really do bring their audience in and make it really clear that they care about what their listeners think, that they want to bring content to their listeners that they know will feel valuable. They perhaps, if it's appropriate, invite listeners onto the show sometimes, or reading out reviews and name checking your listeners, things like that. I think that that's a really great way of nailing your podcast, is making your listeners feel like they're part of this kind of special club, and something that they can really feel part of and invited into is another really, really great element.
Adele is just from Startups and Co. As I said, a good podcast makes you feel like you're eavesdropping in a conversation.
Yeah,
that's exactly how I feel when I'm listening, particularly to, say, How to Fail or any of Brené Brown's. And I feel, and again, it reminds me of what you're talking about with radio. In terms of local radio in particular, does this really well. It makes you feel as though they are talking, and great presenters do this, make you feel as though they're talking just to you.
Yeah.
As well. So you feel that intimate connection, and you on that journey that they are uncovering. Just a quick one for you. Do you think, you mentioned there, some podcasters bring guests on, others are kind of just hosting shows themselves. Is there one preferred way, or is there a better way? Is it great to have guests, or is it great to do solo? I mean, is there a general rule of thumb, or
I don't think there's a rule of thumb, Rubbi. I know, I don't think there's a rule. I think it really depends on the format of your podcast, what you're aiming to achieve with it, whether your podcast topic lends itself to inviting guests on or inviting listeners on. So I'm sorry to say, I don't think there's a rule. You just have to do what feels right and what feels authentic, because that's another big buzzword that we hear so often, and I say it loads, but it's what I've always been taught, and what stood me in such good stead back in my radio days, is authenticity is key, and your listeners will smell your fear and smell your fakeness if you are trying to be, if you're all singing and all dancing, then great, be that. But if you're not cute and fluffy and pink and sparkly unicorns, don't try and put it on, because it will sound weird. So being authentic is key. And I just build on what Adela said actually about a good podcast making you feel like you're eavesdropping. It makes you feel like you're eavesdropping, but like you're welcome to. You don't feel like you're excluded. You feel like you're part of the conversation.
So again, an audience. And you talk about sort of the authenticity there, and that's exactly what great social media does, is the removal of any avatars and just showing up as you, genuinely as you, warts and all. I always advocate boundaries. You don't have to share everything. But it is about showing up and being very much heart-led. And I want to ask, this particular series is about how, I always think social media is great, but I think its true power is really when it's unlocked as it partners with other marketing fields. And obviously I have you on today to talk about podcasting. So tell me, podcasting and social media, help us join the dots. Why are they such great partners?
I think that they both complement each other really well. So take, for example, Instagram. Instagram's all about grabbing attention quickly and stopping people in their scroll. So you've got to be quite concise in what you're talking about. But sometimes what you want to talk about actually lends itself to a longer conversation. So being able to post something on your Instagram that's just a little snippet of that thing that you want to share with your audience, and then being able to signpost your podcast and saying, actually, had a great conversation with this expert on this topic, go and check out my podcast. Yeah. So it's a really good way of being able to repurpose content as well. So obviously we all know that there's the audio element to podcasting, but we shouldn't underestimate the power of the written elements as well. So the show notes, great for SEO, great for driving traffic to your website and directing people back to your social media. And you can reuse those show notes. So loads of people are doing this and repurposing those show notes for blog posts. Taking a really amazing quote that your guest has said that you want to share with your audience who may not have caught that episode. It's just, they work really well together to help, your podcast can help your social media following grow. Your social media following can help your podcast grow if you're using them strategically together.
We talked about repurposing content last week with my guest, Stephen, who came to this interview at the side of a football pitch as he was coaching some teenagers. But he said exactly that in terms of that SEO and blog. And Tommy's just said as well, who knew about show notes and SEO? I'm with you, Tommy. I didn't know. I always hear people say,
what about those backlinks?
Yeah, Brenna always says, check out the show notes. I'll put some links there. And I always think, oh, well, they're nice to read. Didn't realize they had such great marketing power within them, which is ultimate. Here's Tommy, great question. Podcast is definitely next on my goals for this year. Well, hold fire, Tommy, because my next question to Annabelle is, so if someone wanted to start a podcast, launch one, top 3 must-do things. What should we be looking out for? What should Tommy be looking out for?
I thought long and hard about these top 3 tips, okay? And I've...
So thank you for bringing it down to just 3.
Yeah, I had to really condense because I could talk for hours. And you're very brave bringing me on here and just giving me 20 minutes. So I salute you. So I think the first thing you need to do is decide, really get clear on who you're speaking to, why that podcast is valuable to them. What is the reason for them listening? What am I going to get out of listening to your podcast? And what the goal is for your podcast. Do you want to just increase awareness of you as an expert in your industry? Do you want to get more sign-ups to your courses? Do you want to just have a passion project that gives you an outlet? Decide what it is that you want to do with it. Once you know who you're speaking to and why they would listen and what the reason is you want to do for your podcast, the reason you want to do a podcast for your business. I'm trying to get all this in. Once you know those 2 things, it makes all of the other decisions easier to make. So in terms of, how you want your audience to feel when they listen informs the music choice that you make and the type of language that you use and how long your podcast is and all of those things. What was my next tip? My next tip is try to list 10 topics, 10 episode topics, or 10 guests that you'd like to speak to and the kinds of things you'd like to speak to them about. If you can't easily list 10 things, you might want to look at kind of broadening out what your podcast is going to be about, basically. And I would also, bonus tip, pick something that you're really passionate about. Okay. So don't necessarily, if you are a copywriter, and you have a copywriting business, you don't have to do a podcast on how to be a good copywriter. Find something that you're really passionate about that's related to copywriting. So maybe you want to, analyze, maybe you love looking at perfume adverts or charity appeals, or find something related to your job that you're really passionate about and niche down. Podcasting is great for niching. Find something you're really, really interested in because it will help you. Yeah. And my final tip is start utilizing voice notes in your day-to-day life. So when you are texting your friend to tell your friend about that hilarious thing that happened to you at the supermarket when you slipped over on a moldy avocado, voice note it. Something that's off the top of my head.
getting used to telling stories.
Getting you into good habits with word economy and noticing where your vocal tics are, whether you or do you know what I mean? It will help you to, so that when you decide to do your podcast and you press record, it's not the first time that you are speaking and presenting something to an audience, and it gets you more in the habit of listening to yourself, which is another really important thing to do when you are podcasting, is to listen back to yourself and learn what it is that you could do better, what you're doing really well, what you could improve on. So yes, know who your audience is and know why you want to do a podcast. Make sure that you can easily list at least 10 topics or guests you'd like to speak to, and start utilizing voice notes in your day-to-day communication.
Those were awesome. And just on listening back aspect of your tips, two things actually. First of all, I did an interview with Heather Jeffries, who's a presentation coach, and we were talking about appearing on video, so whether that was on social or Zooms or whatever, and she did mention the same thing, playing back your video but with the sound off, so that you get at the way that you're holding yourself, gestures,
your body language, your facial expressions.
Absolutely, which I thought was great. And then an idea popped into my head with the voice notes that you're capturing. They can also potentially become content you share on your social as well. And then thinking back to when your show is out, and obviously then promoting it and coming full circle.
Yeah.
We are
smart
out of time.
Oh, I'm so sad.
Oh,
it just flies by, doesn't it?
I told you, I tell all my guests it's gonna fly, and it always does. Thank you so much. Tommy, you need to talk to Annabelle, producer Buckers, and you, Tommy. I'd love to hear some singing from Tommy. Has got an amazing singing voice as well.
Yes, I know. Yes, Tommy, I know. Yeah, we've spoken. Hi, Tommy.
So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, Rubbi. It's really lovely to be invited. I really appreciate it.
I said at the start, and you may have missed it, when I requested kind of nominations for people to come onto the show who are specifically in the podcasting industry, your name was everywhere. They were in my. Everyone was like, "Oh, you've got to get to Decibel Creative. Got to be Annabelle." So I am so glad. Thank you so much. If you were one of those people.
That's really nice. Thank you.
It's been a total blast, and you look amazing. You did not let me down on the fashion stakes or the weekend.
It's always a pleasure to wear a jumpsuit. Let me tell you that.
Excellent.
They bring joy. They bring joy.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I would love for you to be able to join me next Wednesday at 7 o'clock, because if you're struggling to ask the right questions when you're pitching to a client or gathering maybe intel from your audience, well, you need to listen to my guest next week, Katie, who is the questioning queen of queendom of all time.
That's quite a title.
Excellent. Right, thank you so much, Annabelle, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Rubbi.
Evening. Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.